It was what we now call a typical summer afternoon in Ashland. 104 degrees, according to the weather app on my phone. Acrid air, heavy with yellow smoke. I had just turned on the TV, and there, looking back at me, was Wolf Blitzer, who announced that he had some breaking news. Now, Wolf Blitzer's breaking news is always bad news, and this breaking news was some of the worst I had ever heard. It seems that a select group of renowned scientists had just issued a report to the United Nations. The report said that thanks largely to human folly, greed, and mismanagement, global warming had now reached what the scientists called the tipping point. We still had a few years to try to pull ourselves back from the abyss, but the door was closing very fast. And even if we did avoid annihilation, our world would never be the same. And so, get used to the heat and the drought and the wildfires and the floods and the hurricanes and the melting ice and the rising oceans. Say goodbye to the salmon and the whales and the polar bears and the monarch butterflies. This is the new normal for the rest of our lives. Well, I stared at the TV in shock and horror, resigned to the reality that the world as I've known it all my life was about to end. And I was helpless to do anything about it. After all, what could one person do? At precisely that moment, Mary called to me from the kitchen and said, "I'm going to feed the hummingbirds." Now, wait a minute, I thought. Wolf Blitzer says that the UN says that the scientists say that the world as we know it may be coming to an end. How will feeding the hummingbirds make a difference? And I was still mulling over that question that evening when I walked our dog, Izzy, to the park, until I noticed something I had really never noticed before. There were hummingbird feeders suspended from trees and porches and wrought iron hangers at every other house in our neighborhood, and they all seemed to be completely full. It was as if everyone had the same idea, as if everyone had heard Wolf Blitzer's dire report about global warming, and then, on cue, everybody got up and fed the hummingbirds. What was going on here? Why feed the hummingbirds? So I'm going to stop for a moment to verify what you've probably already guessed. Our discussion on this Rosh Hashanah morning is not really about hummingbirds, as much as we might love the little creatures, nor is it really about climate change, as big a problem as that might be. When we ask, why feed the hummingbirds, what we are really asking is, what can one person do when confronted by events that are so big, so confusing, and so frightening that it seems that everywhere we turn leads to a dead end and nothing we do makes any difference? What can we do when all the breaking news, all of it, climate and politics and human rights and COVID-19, all of it, leads to one conclusion: everything is broken? Now, I know that sounds really depressing. So let me give you a spoiler alert. Let me assure you of three things. First, there is an answer to this question. And it's an answer that is found at the heart of our Jewish tradition. Second, the answer is clear and straightforward. And third, the answer gives us direction and comfort, and most of all, hope. Okay, why feed the hummingbirds? For the answer, let's turn to Hillel. Like us, Hillel lived during troubled times. Like us, Hillel asked, what can one person do that would really make a difference? And here is Hillel's answer. It's found in the Mishnah in Tractate Pirkei Avot. B'makom she'ein anashim, hishtadel lihiyot ish. A literal translation of this is, in a place where men are lacking, try to be a man. But a better translation that captures both the idiom and the deeper meaning is this. In a place when human nature has gone terribly awry, you must strive to do the right thing. And what is the right thing? For Hillel, there is no ambiguity. The right thing is treating other people as you want them to treat you. Showing kindness to those who suffer, giving charity to those in need, forgiving those who are truly sorry, granting all people the benefit of the doubt, understanding that the welfare of the community always takes precedence over the prejudice or the profit of the individual. So why feed the hummingbirds? Hillel would say, because these tiny creatures need your help in this heat and this smoke, because it's the right thing to do. But his answer goes deeper than that. Those who are well-schooled in Hebrew grammar, and that, of course, is the entire congregation of Temple Emek Shalom, will recognize immediately that the second part of Hillel's admonition is in the imperative sense. You must strive to do the right thing. Recognizing the right act is not enough. We must then try to do the right thing. It's not an option. It's a demand. It is, in fact, the very measure of our character. So Hillel has helped us answer the question, why feed the hummingbirds? Because it's the right thing to do. And because good people must strive to do the right thing. But there's more to this question, isn't there? Does one good act by one good person really make any difference? Hillel and his disciples, and the disciples of his disciples, and all of Jewish ethics that follows them, say, yes, it does. One of those disciples, of a disciple, Shimon ben Azai, made the following observation that is also contained in Pirkei Avot. Mitzvah goreret mitzvah. The literal translation is, a commandment drags out a commandment. The better translation is, one good deed elicits another. So one good deed, however small it may seem, always makes a difference. Science proves it. Now, bear with me here. I have degrees in literature and history and Judaic studies, but I'm not a scientist. But this is, as I understand it, what science says. Eons ago, at another time of global warming and climate change, the number of plants throughout the world exploded. And of course, these billions and billions of plants competed with each other for space to grow. And if evolution can be said to be a learning process, then some plants learned to increase their chances of success by tricking insects into helping them move from one overcrowded corner of the forest to new surroundings. How did they do that? It was ingenious. The plants produced brightly colored flowers and sweet-tasting nectar, which then lured the insects to the plants, and the insects landed on the flowers and they brushed against the pollen, so they carried some of the pollen with them when they flew to another plant. In other words, the insects did just what the plants planned for them to do. They spread pollen from one plant to another. And just like that, these clever plants increase their chances to reproduce and thrive for another generation and another and another, and so on, up to this very day. But while this intricate dance between plants and insects was going on, something else happened. Something truly remarkable. Birds also developed a taste for nectar. Now, most birds quickly found out that they were birds, not insects. They were just too big and too clumsy to compete with the insects. And so these birds, most of them, continued to eat bugs and worms and little animals and, frankly, other birds. But some birds stuck with it. They changed, they evolved. They became smaller, so small that they could fit into a flower. They grew long, slender beaks that could sip nectar from even the most delicate blossoms. And they developed wings that moved, not like bird wings at all, but like insect wings. Wings that flapped up and down and also back and forth at 50 or more times each second, so that they could fly backwards and forwards and even hover in the air like bees. You see what happened? Plants evolved to attract insects, but there was an unintended consequence to this phenomenon, and hummingbirds came into the world. Scientists call this phenomenon the hummingbird effect. And it happens all the time in nature. A change in one plant or animal in one corner of the world triggers a change in another plant or animal in another corner of the world, because in nature nothing is isolated. In nature, one change always leads to another. This hummingbird effect works in the realm of ethics as well. That is precisely what Hillel's disciple meant when he said, "One good deed elicits another." When we recognize what is right and good, when we then act to do the right thing, then somehow, in some way, even in the smallest of ways, other good actions will result. And so, we make contributions to charity. We bring cans of soup and boxes of cereal to the synagogue or to the food bank. We visit those who are sick or alone. We comfort those who are in mourning. We give other people the benefit of the doubt. We say, "I'm sorry." We say, "I forgive you." These may be small things, but remember the hummingbird effect. One good deed elicits another good deed. One good person inspires another good person to be good and to act in a good way. It is a process, like evolution, and it goes on and on and on, until in time we find that the world itself has changed. It and we have become whole and healthy and good again. This just in, breaking news. It's another hot day in Ashland. Drought and no rain in sight. The forests are burning, and heavy smoke hangs in the air. It is a perfect day to feed the hummingbirds.